We did a video a little while back on here about several artists choosing to pull their music from the Spotify platform, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard being the biggest among them. This was in the wake of Spotify CEO Daniel Ek making large investments in AI-powered military tech companies, which was really just the straw that broke the camel's back, as Spotify had numerous controversies over the course of its existence. Since then, however, two more artists have entirely pulled their catalog not only from Spotify, but from streaming in general. The first that came pretty quickly after the last video came out was hypnagogic pop artist Cindy Lee, who you may know specifically from their 2024 album Diamond Jubilee. I wouldn't say that Cindy Lee is one of the more surprising artists to pull their music during this recent movement though, since their whole catalog wasn't available on streaming for much of the time that it existed in the first place.
Coming back in real quick to also mention that post-rock band Shearling has left Spotify but not other streaming platforms.
The other artist that's pulled out of streaming is one that feels like a bigger change, however, and that's post-rock band Godspeed You Black Emperor, who has been on streaming for basically as long as streaming has been a thing. Given political statements like what they made with last year's album, I'm actually surprised they stuck with Spotify as long as they did, but leaving every platform, including ones owned by less predatory companies, is a bit puzzling. That said, maybe it does make for a stronger statement and a more powerful sentiment, considering one of the most common criticisms for artists leaving Spotify is that other streaming platforms are also owned by sketchy companies. If you want my personal take and why I use Apple Music instead, it's not that Apple is a better company, it's just that boycotting Spotify could actually result in significant change. All Spotify has to their name is their streaming platform, whereas companies like Amazon, Apple, and Google get most of their profits elsewhere, so it wouldn't meaningfully change any of their company's revenue. But that said, it makes sense, especially for a band like Godspeed, to simply not want to be associated with a company like Apple at all. I said before, and I'll reiterate, that it seems like we're likely going to continue seeing more and more artists pulling out from Spotify. I don't think, however, we're going to see many artists pulling out of streaming platforms entirely, because it just isn't a good move for their financial situation. Spotify pays out very little, so the only real thing artists lose by boycotting them is some of their discoverability, which is a sacrifice that seems reasonable to make. Most of them don't have the cult-like following that a band like Godspeed does though, where they likely make almost all of their revenue off of live shows and physical media anyways. I've recently been going through and trying all of the streaming platforms, and so far Apple Music does still feel like the best option because of its local files option, but I'll be back soon with a big update on that and a long form video to explain it all. So remember to like and follow for more music related content.